Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Invitational Qualifier and RCQ. I'm Tandy, joined by Raph Spuden. Say hi, Raph.
Hi, Raph.
We have 2 rounds in the books. We got 5 rounds of Swiss left and top 8. We're all those matches are gonna be brought to you today. Right now, we are moving into round number 3, and we got a heater for you. Raph, tell us about it.
All right, so we've got Chris Hafner. We'll be playing some mono white hammer.
Okay.
Against Charlie Lorenz on blue-white control.
Okay, sounds good. What do you think? What do you think the matchup's like?
So this is definitely going to be an interesting one. You'd think that the blue-white control deck would have an edge here simply because they've got a plethora of interaction. They're going up against a creature-based deck. It seems like it'd be more in blue-white control's wheelhouse. I'm not actually sure that's going to end up being the case here. Okay. If the hammer deck can get down ahead of the blue-white deck, I think it's actually pretty hard for the blue-white deck to catch up because their cheap answers is stuff like Leyline Binding and Prismatic Ending, which doesn't always line up great early game.
Sure, makes sense. All right, well, the players are ready in the feature match area. We're going to be cutting down there in just a moment. All right, on your right, we got, I believe that's Lorenz playing hammer, yes?
That's Hafner playing
Hafner
hammer.
playing hammer, excuse me. Hafner was in the booth yesterday, right?
Yeah, he provided coverage for the F&M here at Apex. And, I'm mistaken. Looks like Hafner's actually on a Zorius hammer. So that he does have a couple of main deck spell pierces, as well as...
Well, those spell pierces could be darn good.
Yeah, especially if Lorenz is on a draw that is relying heavily on, say, something like a Teferi Time Raveler to come down and maybe stop a Sigarda's Aid. Definitely could be problematic.
Thought Hafner was about to get out his Nintendo Switch, start playing some Breath of the Wild. All right, we're going to fetch. We're underway here. Hafner on your right playing hammer, Lorenz on your left playing blue-white control. The hammer player being on the play, leading off with a 1-drop here. Got to be pretty happy about that, having Esper Sentinel on 1.
Absolutely, that's got to be the best one in the matchup against blue-white. It looks like Lorenz does have a couple copies of Prismatic Ending, which is very good in this particular matchup, but Hafner is going to get to draw a card and picks up a copy of Sigarda's Aid.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be happy if you're Hafner just trading up on cards with your 1-mana threat versus 1-mana interaction.
And a hammer off the top as well. Hafner is looking good.
Stoneforge Mystic's going to be the play while the shields are down. This is probably going to go get another hammer. We have the Sigarda's Aid. So next turn, threatening lethal. If Lorenz does not have anything at all, we'll see if he has some sort of counter spell or removal spell for the Stoneforge.
All right, looks like we're going to go for Cauldron Complete here and really put the hammer on Charlie, making him have the answer to this Stoneforge Mystic immediately. That is one that is very difficult to deal with.
All right, looks like we do have another Prismatic Ending, so we will be able to take care of the Stoneforge Mystic. And now it's going to be back Hafner's way and see if he can have another threat after these 2 removal spells.
It looks like the only action left in Lorenz's hand might be that copy of Supreme Verdict. I think he's got 4 lands on a Verdict, which is not going to be good enough against this draw from Hafner, who picks up a copy of Nettle Cyst off of this Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, and this is going to be an extra threat in case this Stoneforge Mystic dies as well. The living weapon of the Nettle Cyst will allow it to stick around, and then it can be suited up with those Colossus Hammers and the Sigarda's Aid later.
You're going to see the Sigarda's Aid come down as well.
All right, back Lorenz's way. Let's see. He draws Counterspell. That could save him for a turn.
Yeah, we'll see how Hafner chooses to play this. Likely going to see the Stoneforge Mystic activate and the Cauldron come down.
I love that. I love that. Because that Indestructible is very good against these blue-white control decks and makes Supreme Verdict look pretty bad.
Absolutely, yeah. Their answers are going to be more in that Prismatic Ending to Teferi Time Raveler vein. But here we are going to see Cauldron Complete on the battlefield. Germ being made.
We are long gone are the days of Batterskull, my friend.
I tried to play with Batterskull for a long time, and it just does not get there anymore. That's
weird. All right, 5 damage coming in. We'll see if there are any hammers wanting to be played here. A Stoneforge Mystic post-combat could be the want for Hafner, but might also just want to not play anything at all.
And Hafner's hand is 2 hammers, the Nettle Cyst, and Stoneforge Mystic. Looks like Hafner might have just passed the turn back.
Yeah, Lauren's going to go ahead and fetch a Triumph. This is going to allow for cheaper leyline bindings and such.
Yeah, I actually like this line a lot from Hafner because you're going to force Lorenz to have multiple counter spells on his own turn because of this Sigarda's aid, and then you're just going to have free reign to do whatever you want on your following turn. And picks up another land.
Yeah, that's not going to do it. I think that Hafner is going to untap and win the game pretty easily thanks to multiple copies of Hammer in hand. And Loren's not even going to see. He's just going to pack it in immediately. And Hafner takes on game one. A very quick game one. Modern pretty fast these days thanks to a lot of these pitch cards, you know, these like combo creature control decks. A lot of really powerful stuff going on in the first few turns.
Absolutely. And all right, I guess we'll go ahead and take a look at Lorenz's sideboard here. So we've got a copy of Kahira, that's the companion, and then a copy of Subtlety, one more Supreme Verdict, 2 Wear Tear, 2 March of Otherworldly Light, 2 Dovin's Veto, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Dress Down, and 2 Rest in Peace. Todd, what do you like coming in here?
Well, I like as much interaction with artifacts and enchantments as possible. I think Wear Tear and March of Otherworldly Light are 100% to come in. I think Supreme Verdict's pretty likely to come in. The deck does go wide on creatures with things like Urza Saga now and then. It's one of the easiest ways for those types of decks to get underneath your counter spells. So I think having an answer to that's pretty good. And then Dress Down, because specifically of those Urza Sagas, I think will come in as well. And Dress Down doubles as a way to essentially counter a Stoneforge Mystic by just turning off the ability for a turn.
Yeah, absolutely. I like all of that as well. So from the Hammer side of things, we're seeing 2 March of Otherworldly Light, a Blacksmith Skill, Pithing Needle, 2 Spell Pierce, 3 Drannith Magistrate, 2 Path to Exile, a Relic of Progenitus, and 3 copies of Sanctifier on Vec.
Yeah, honestly, not a ton of stuff that I want to bring in here. I think Spell Pierce is the obvious slam dunk. It's going to counter a bunch of those early removal spells from the blue-white player. It's going to help win some counterspell wards in some weird spots. But the rest of the sideboard seems like removal and Blacksmith Skill, and I'm not really too excited about any of that stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Pithing Needle come in here,
Okay.
as most of the time, the blue-white deck's going to be looking to win with like Teferis, Planeswalkers, things of that nature. But other than that, I agree. Not a whole lot here. Just looking to be a little more interactive on the stack with those.
Yeah, you can be pretty cavalier with your one of Pithing Needles and one of Artifacts on the sideboards when you're playing Urza Saga. It's just there's situations where you'll want any random artifact like all the time in a number of matchups, and so you can try to justify bringing it in however you want. Sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's going to be bad.
Right.
All right, players here look like they're done sideboarding and they are shuffling up for game number 2. Hafner, the Hammer deck, looking pretty good in game 1, a really smooth draw. You have to imagine he was very happy with that turn 1 trade, Esper Sentinel for Prismatic Ending and plus a card.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just some of the power and just play draw that you see in Modern, especially when people are being so powerful and so interactive on these early turns. That game's completely different if Lorenz is on the draw and is able to Prismatic Ending plus pay for that Esper Sentinel.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, being on the play has seemed to be more important these days in Magic. I don't know if it's because of just the sheer power level of the cards or if it's because many of the cards lead to lopsided games when left unchecked, and it's just easier to go unchecked when you're on the play. Average casting costs, I think, are just down across the board, and especially in Modern. And when that happens, you'll just see games just end more quickly because your opponents just can't keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. You see decks predicated around that entire basis of wanting to play to the board early, such as the Scam deck that we saw last round. These Hammer decks that are generating, Esper Sentinels and Sigarda's aids on early turn and just immediately putting pressure on their opponents.
Yeah, and it's not even actual pressure, right? It's virtual pressure. Your cards dictate your opponent's movements and force their hand in a lot of spots. It makes them main phase cards they wouldn't main phase. It makes them trade mana badly against things like the Esper Sentinel. The threat versus answer dichotomy is just broken by these just extremely powerful threats.
Yeah, we do see Lorenz taking a mulligan here. He took a quick look at his hand. I don't believe there were many lands in there.
Unlike game 1.
Yeah.
There were plenty.
Yeah, we'll see if Lorenz can find a healthy balance of land and spells here.
Yeah. Hafner's hand looks pretty good, though. We have a Spell Pierce and an Esper Sentinel, and you have to imagine that combination of cards is exactly what you want to see in the early turns against blue-white control.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting decks like blue-white in this meta where the answers are so, or sorry, the threats are so good,
Right.
and come down so early. Choosing to play something like Blue White Control, where you have to answer literally every threat, is a I don't know. It's not necessarily a choice that I would make, but then again, I like forests. So
All right, we're here for game number 2. Lorenz on the play. Looks like he kept a one-lander. We'll see if he can cobble together some form of game plan here with just the one land. Hafner choosing not to deploy anything on 2. Maybe wary of something like Renin 6. I know Zach Allen, he's a regular on the NRG series, has been tearing it up with his blue-white control deck that's splashing Ren 6. And, when your opponent's on the mulligan on the play and you have Spell Pierce, maybe it just makes sense to just hold up Spell Pierce for a turn, just in case.
Yeah, definitely that makes sense. But we do see Hafner without a second land in hand, I believe. So both players are actually going to be missing land drops unless Hafner's able to pick one up off the draw step here.
All right, we're going to be fetching probably Tap Pallid Fountain. Lands are way more important for Lorenz to be hitting. Most of his deck is very expensive as far as threats are concerned. It's the answers that are cheap. We see Wear Tear ×2, Prismatic Ending ×2. We have Counterspell. These cards all cost 1 and 2 mana, but you need to have one of those payoffs later to leverage those cheap interactive pieces.
Now we see Esper Sentinel coming down against Lorenz, who has missed a land drop. Hafner's going to miss his land drop as well. Oh, but Lorenz finds a copy of Solitude. He might be inclined to Solitude this Esper Sentinel to get it off the table as opposed to giving Hafner a card.
Yeah. Could also just ignore the Sentinel for a turn or two. It's not really that threatening right now. It's only 1 damage, and you have the Solitude that can answer something like Stoneforge Mystic. Now, in response to Springleaf Drum, I might want to go ahead and Solitude.
Yep.
Because that shuts off the ability to add extra mana.
And we do see that play from Lorenz, very heads up, especially with Hafner having Blacksmith skill and multiple Spell Pierces in hand.
Yeah. All right, back Lorenz's way. Still no second land. His control deck missing land drops. You have to imagine they're not feeling very good right now about their position, but handful of interaction.
Yeah, and they're not under a lot of pressure. So even though they are missing land drops, we're going to see Prismatic Ending go ahead and take care of the Springleaf Drum here.
Yeah, this shuts off something like Ornithopter or Memnite being an out to generate extra mana. So I like the play from Lorenz. A little aggressive, but somewhat necessary.
And a second land and a Stoneforge Mystic for Christian Hafner.
Yeah, but he's going to see subtlety here probably from Lorenz. He's Dominance. It is just a temporary answer, though. We can put it right back on top of the deck.
It looks like Hafner's deciding where he wants to put that.
He wants to draw another land, but also just needs interaction. Or needs, some sort of threat.
Opts to keep the Stoneforge Mystic on top. Lorenz does find a second land, and that'll enable that counterspell if Hafner decides to jam the Stoneforge Mystic.
Counterspell's down. It got pitched to subtlety, so what it does unlock, though, is Leyline Binding. And no play from Hafner. He drew the Stoneforge Mystic, but doesn't want to play it into something like Counterspell or the Leyline Binding. Instead, going to wait till they draw the third land to be able to start deploying those things.
Yeah, it turns out the threat of Counterspell here is a lot better than the actual card being present, especially with one already being pitched. Hafner might just suspect that there's a second one.
Yeah, and Hafner playing really slow. Instead of playing any of the 2-mana creatures, just going to sit on multiple Spell Pierces. Wants to make sure that Lorenz isn't able to get a foothold in the game with some Planeswalker like Jason the Mind Sculptor, Renin 6, things like that.
Yeah, and Lorenz goes ahead and finds Zagoth's Triumph, which means that Leyline Binding in his hand is going to cost just the 1 mana.
All right, and it looks like we're going to go ahead and tear the Colossus Hammer, and Christian Hafner is fine with that trade since it was kind of a dead cast anyway. Teferi Hero Dominaria is the draw, but Hafner might be able to check that pretty easily in a few turns with a Spell Pierce.
And that's an Urza's Saga being found for Hafner and a Stoneforge Mystic being deployed. So if Hafner decides to deploy an artifact, that'll turn on both halves of that Wear Tear, except Lorenz actually can't cast both halves of it right now with those lands that he has. Just the one Triumph there.
Perhaps a slight misstep from Lorenz. Could have used the Wear Tear with the trigger from Saga on the stack, much like we saw last round or the round before. I believe it was round 1 actually with Ryan Hayes.
Yeah.
Gonna buy Kahira. Not the best play for your 4th mana turn from Lorenz. Hafner's got to be very happy with that. Let's see if he can capitalize.
And Cauldron Complete was the pickup here, and we're going to see that come down.
Another land from Hafner would have certainly have meant demise with a Spell Pierce, but here it seems like the Leyline Binding is just going to be able to take it out.
Yeah, and that's going to go after the Cauldron Complete itself.
All right.
Don't believe Hafner has anything in the deck that would allow him to blow up that Leyline Binding, unless he brought in March of Otherworldly Light, wants to discard a whole lot of cards.
Yeah, but shields are down now, so if Lorenz draws land number 5, can play a Teferi Time Raveler, or Teferi Hero of Dominaria, and really get cooking.
Found Chalice of the Void.
That's an interesting one. Can play that on X=1 and essentially lock out like half of Hafner's deck.
Yeah, those Spell Pierces, Pithing Needle, the 3 Spell Pierces, Pithing Needle, and 2 Blacksmith Skill. That just basically mind twisted Hafner.
Yeah. So yeah,
it's gonna be left with just the Urza Saga and Pure Steel Paladin.
All right, attack for 1 from Stoneforge. Pure Steel Paladin probably going to be the play, and then we're going to be sitting on Urza Saga for the next few turns as we get that going.
Counterspell the pickup for Lorenz, but of course that Chalice of the Void basically takes care of that. Everything.
Things, so.
Yeah. Hafner is looking at 5 cards that all get countered by Chalice right now.
Doesn't want to give that information away though, so going to keep it close to the vest. We're going to draw for the turn. Saga ticks up, and we can start making tokens. Draws another dead card.
Yeah, I mean, what we're likely going to see here from Hafner is the Urza Saga make constructs both on Charlie's end step and on his upkeep so that he can go get a hammer and try to equip it with the Metalcraft ability. But Charlie actually picked up a copy of Archmage's Charm, which means that he's going to be able to gain control of those construct tokens and actually shut off Metalcraft.
Could also, I believe, steal the hammer with the draw trigger on the stack before an equip can actually happen. That might be a little bit better since the hammer is the scary part at the moment, like the very scary part.
Yeah, it's certainly a play that's available. We're going to see what Lorenz opts to do.
All right, well, regardless, the hammer does get to draw a card. We'll see how Lorenz wants to play it. He can also steal one of the tokens with the trigger on, like you said, and then that does turn off Metalcraft for the turn. But something like a Midnight or an Ornithopter before attacks, could just enable Metalcraft immediately. So it'll be interesting to see what Lorenz wants to go after here.
Yeah, the other thing is that I believe Hafner drew a copy of Core Outfitter for the turn. So if Lorenz opts not to take the hammer, looks like he's opted for none of the above. Oh, he's going to wait until the hammer's equipped in order to take it.
Yeah, because it has to equip to either one of the 2-drops or the non-summoning sick construct. Mm-hmm. So I guess this is inside Declare Attackers. We're going to steal your construct. And that's going to reduce Metalcraft. So now the construct's going to keep the hammer for at least a turn cycle.
Yeah, it looks like we caught there. The Lorenz tried to pay for that Archmage for plans, but good catch.
Yep. No harm, no foul. This might be in response to the equip targeting. I don't know what the timing is. If this is in response to equip targeting, equipments can only target things that you control, so it could fizzle the target. Instead, though, we are just going to take the construct, and that's going to still have the hammer on it and be a pretty sick threat next turn.
Yeah, especially because now Hafner does not have Metalcraft anymore, so he can't re-equip.
Actually, no, sorry.
No, just one away.
Hafner still technically controls.
Yeah, Hafner still does control the hammer.
All right, 5th land here for Lorenz. Going to be able to deploy this Teferi. Probably going to minus on something. My guess would be Pure Steel Paladin, since that means that Metalcraft is even further away because we didn't play any artifacts last turn, and you have to redeploy it for all of your mana.
Yeah, this Chalice of the Void is just doing a lot of work here. And it looks like we're not even going to see... Oh, no, never mind. We're just moving to combat here.
Yeah, less information. You don't want to show them the Teferi yet.
Yep.
Could just draw a card, untap, and hold a counterspell, too. That seems pretty darn good.
Yeah, it looks like the options is none of the above. Hafner just packs them in at the sight of the powerful 5-mana Planeswalker, and we are off to game 3.
Yeah, a really nice draw with that Archmage's Charm. Just completely shifted the dynamic of the game. The Chalice of the Void the turn before that just shut off so many cards in their hand. So Really nicely sequenced. That game looked like it was going to be bad for the blue-white control player because they started with only one land, but you can see that you can be mana screwed for a few turns in decks like this, and it's fine because you have so much 1 and 2 mana interaction, a bunch of 0 mana interaction with things like Solitude and Subtlety. So that's just really a well sequenced game there from the blue-white control side.
Absolutely. So going back to the sideboard, is there any changes that you think would be made versus the player, the draw for these players, or are your plans basically just staying the same?
There are some matchups where play and draw does change the dynamic of things. I think that usually belies playing Ragavan. I think Ragavan is a card that is significantly better on the play versus draw in a number of matchups. Like I would always want on the play in every matchup, but on the draw I don't really want it against things that play Esper Sentinel, for example,
Right?
Because it just gets brick walled too easily and too cheaply. For these players specifically, I don't think too much is going to change. I think that the sideboard plans that they've enacted kind of spread across multiple scenarios, multiple play draw situations, so it doesn't matter too much. All right, chat says Hafner being on 1-2 though. I don't know what that means, J-Core. You're gonna have
I
to
believe one land. What they were saying.
so this is chat from the beginning of the game. I'm gonna need y'all to bark up a little bit. I need chat to really get into it.
All right, so it looks like we're gonna be off to game 3 here. Players taking it over playing 7s.
Yep, and Hafner going to be on the play with Hammer. It's definitely where you want to be in the matchup, on the play. Game number 3, not so much.
And it looks like another one. No, we got 2-lander there for Hafner with a Giver of Runes, Esper Sentinel, and Pithing Needle all present. Looks like he's satisfied with that.
Not really sure what all was in the hand for Lorenz. I thought I saw a pretty decent opener with 3 lands, Teferi, Wear Tear, and Counterspell. But maybe just not having 1 mana interaction means that you have to mulligan? Don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I imagine Counterspell definitely gets a lot worse on the draw here.
That's true.
So,
ooh, maybe that's an argument to actually cut Counterspell off your sideboard in your deck if you need to make some room. Counterspell and Counterspells in general tend to be their strongest when they're trading up on mana usage. Like if you use Counterspell to counter something that costs 3 or greater, and when your opponent's entire deck costs 1 and 2 and has Urza Saga and has Spell Pierce, Counterspell just starts to shrink in strength.
Yeah, and it looks like a pretty good 6 here for Lorenz. 3 lands, Teferi, Time Ravel, or Prismatic Ending and Solitude.
Yeah, definitely some protection. We're gonna probably ending here on the Giver of Runes, I would imagine, but maybe Lorenz wants to wait and try to sweep it up with a Supreme Verdict or something.
Yep, and the draw for Hafner is a second Giver of Runes, but Stoneforge Mystic is the play.
Yeah, we're gonna be able to protect the heck out of that one.
Yeah, imagine with the protection up, this is gonna go get Cauldron Complete.
Yeah,
and start putting the pressure on immediately, and that is the play.
Yeah, plus getting stuff like Hammer just doesn't do a ton when you don't have a Sigarda's Aid wrapped up and when you don't have Pure Steel Paladin.
Yeah, the Solitude we know is in Lorenz's hands, so that might be able to take care of the Germ token if Lorenz were to go for something like Prismatic Ending on the Giver of Runes first. Yeah, we'll probably see Prismatic Ending on the Giver and then perhaps a Solitude on the Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, I think that's a decent sequence. We're going to be essentially out of spells from Lorenz's side of things, but with a bunch of potential top decks, you can also buy the Kahira and still have fodder for later for the Solitude.
Yeah, that would leave Lorenz on no spells left in the hand, so we'll see what he opts to do here.
All right, thumbs the Prismatic Ending to the front. Maybe considers thinking about it and maybe honestly just taking a hit from Cauldron Complete, not so bad.
I can see the activation, and the activation's good, which means Lorenz is opting not to Solitude the Mystic ahead of time.
All right, so that means he's going to let the Cauldron Complete come down and hit him. Maybe planning on using something like Teferi Time Raveler to deal with it next turn, or just wants to deal with the Germ itself and not really care about the Stoneforge.
Yeah, definitely if you're going for the Teferi line, you're going to end up bouncing the Germ and not the Cauldron Complete itself. But Esper Sentinel going to be the play here. I don't know that Hafner has another land. That's no. Just going for Sentinel Giver.
Okay, maybe sniffing out some weird stuff here. Gonna go for Giver of Runes, Esper Sentinel. Gonna try to, we can't really play around Supreme Verdict in this deck that well. So here we're just going to essentially create some barriers so that Cauldron Complete or other germ generators like Nettle Cyst end up being a bit stronger in the next few turns.
Yeah, I think what Hafner was hoping there was land off the top so that he could deploy the Pithing Needle named Teferi Time Raveler and then activate Stoneforge Mystic.
Sure. All right, back Lorenz's way. Has the option to buy Kahira this turn and then use it to pitch. Drew Counterspell, so has that at the ready. But with Stoneforge Mystic cheating the thing into play instead of actually casting it, I'm not sure how viable that is specifically. I do kind of like just buying Kahira. Pitching with Solitude is not that bad, but the problem is the Giver of Runes that was played last turn is nightmarish.
Yeah, that Giver is going to demand an answer pretty swiftly.
Ellie, when did you start playing Magic?
I started playing Magic, let's see, I was in 8th grade, so yeah, my first set was a Ravnica City of Guilds.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing this up because there's a card type from Apocalypse. You might remember it from various things like Pauper. Flag Bearers.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar.
So Flag Bearers were this weird card type that if your opponent had anything that targeted stuff, they had to choose a Flag Bearer as at least one of the targets. And Giver of Runes acts a lot like a Flag Bearer because if it gets to untap, you essentially have to kill it first before you go after anything else.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of Giver of Runes for a long time. Basically, since it was printed into Modern, I played a lot of Devoted Druid back when that was a more viable deck. And Giver of Runes and the Devoted Druid Stoneforge Mystic Shells were quite good.
Yeah. So here Hafner is being a little bit slow with the activation of the Stoneforge Mystic. Going to kind of choose to do it during the end step of Lorenz. And so we're just going to attack with one with the Sentinel, and we're going to pass the turn. Back Lorenz's way. No play from Lorenz either.
Yeah, Lorenz is definitely had a steady stream of lands in these games 1 and 3 here. Let's see what he opts to do. Looks like it's going to be the Teferi.
All right. So Teferi here, I don't think another white card was drawn for the Solitude, so this could be very scary. But what else is he going to do, you know? Teferi's the cast. Let's see what Hafner is going to do in response. We're going to trigger the Esper Sentinel.
Looks like we're fetching it in response to the Esper Sentinel trigger. This is actually a bit of deck thinning, not wanting to draw more lands.
Yeah, if your opponent does give you the card, you don't want to draw an extra land, so a little bit of thinning doesn't hurt. It's not like we have Brainstorm in this format. Lets him have it. Interesting. Could just pay the 1.
Yeah, wondering what the rationale is there.
Maybe just really wants to draw Prismatic Ending or something similar, or Leyline Binding, perhaps. Looks like we don't have black mana. I believe that's a Ketria and a Ragran Triumph. So
now that is a Zagoth.
that's a
Triumph,
Zagoth.
yeah,
Okay, so we do have Leyline
Binding.
Binding.
Does cost
So Giver Runes here. We're going to use it. We're going to target one of the creatures.
I believe it targeted Stoneforge Mystic, and a Subtlety was picked up.
Yeah, still can't pitch the Solitude, though. We'll see what Hafner can do to max punish here. In a turn. We're going to blitz in the Nettle Cyst. Going to get a Germ.
Yeah, it makes sense to put that one in since since we know the Cauldron is good and the Cauldron is going to have haste.
Yeah. Now, if you're Hafner, you have to be a little concerned with something like Supreme Verdict next turn, but Cauldron Complete specifically doesn't fall prey to that. And an Urza Saga off the top means that he can rebuild very easily. So it looks like that's going to be the sequence here. We're going to start with a Pithing Needle. See if Lorenz has a response. It resolves. We'll get the name for you in just a second.
Yeah, it does look like he pointed to Teferi Time Raveler, but we'll see if that is indeed the name.
All right. Saga's the play for the land, and that over the next few turns is going to generate some more bodies that can get out from underneath a sweeper if that is something that Lorenz does draw.
Looks like we're just going to combat here. Hafner is being very stingy with this Cauldron.
Playing around Leyline Binding very, very nicely, I think. All right, Needle is naming Teferi Time Raveler.
Yep.
We're going to redeploy Giver of Runes. I wouldn't be surprised if we hold up Stoneforge Mystic. That way, if Charlie ever goes to kill it, we can put in the Cauldron in response. But saving it for as long as possible makes a ton of sense. And it plays around something else, too, something that was just drawn.
Yeah, Archmage's Charm was the pickup here for Lorenz. So that can definitely go after some germ tokens on Hafner's side. Could potentially also just go after this Giver of Runes, and just might have to be the answer. But only 5 mana here for Lorenz, meaning that you can't necessarily pick up Kahira, Solitude, and have Archmage's Charm all available.
Yeah, it turns out spells cost things usually.
Huh,
I say
weird.
usually because he has 2 free spells in hand. All right, so
Most
end of turn.
spells. Sorry.
I'm sorry. End of turn Cauldra. Now, with the shields down, this Giver of Runes has Summoning Sickness. I believe this Archmage's Charm is going to steal the Germ. Now, we can technically re-equip the Cauldra if we draw something like, what's his face? Oh, we're just, never mind.
Oh, it's hard casting Solitude.
I thought we were stealing the Germ.
I also thought we were doing that.
Solitude's going to eat it. Hafner going to gain 5. We're going to go back his way. Giver of Runes now active. Urza Saga now active. But this Nettle Cyst is pretty darn big, and something like Pure Steel Paladin off the top might just be lethal. Spell Pierce is a draw. The static of Teferi is not locked down by the needle, just the activated ability. So Spell Pierce doesn't look that good until this Teferi gets knocked off the table.
Yeah, that might incentivize Hafner to try to put this Nettle Cyst at the Teferi.
Yeah, perhaps. We can also just equip the Nettle Cyst to the Esper Sentinel, and that makes the card draw almost a guarantee because it just costs so much mana.
Yeah.
Now that we have Giver active, it makes sense. All right, we got 2 creatures going at Teferi, and we got Nettle Cyst going at face. We can use Giver to keep either creature alive. And that's going to turn on Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce is a little bit worse now, though, considering Lorenz has hit every land drop for 5 straight turns.
Looks like we might have just let damage happen. Sentinel down.
Okay. Well, that is a choice that you can make because it does seem like that's a fine way to make sure that your Nettle Cyst doesn't get busted up by anything. Giver of Runes still at the ready to protect, but Teferi down and Spell Pierce active.
Yeah, that's also a heads-up play by Hafner, because if, say, you were to equip the Nettle Cyst onto the Esper Sentinel post-combat, and then that Archmage's Charm were to come into play and take it while the Giver of Runes is down, that's a nightmare for Hafner.
Yeah. All right. We got Archmage's Charm, Counterspell, Subtlety. Let's see if Lorenz can figure out a way to use these cards to stop the onslaught from Hafner. We're going to activate Urza Saga, but Giver of Runes is going to be protecting it from that Archmage's Charm. All right. Saga going to be ticking up to 3. Let's see the draw for turn. It's just a Seachrome Coast. We're probably going to be making a token, and then we're going to be searching up something.
Yep, another construct's going to come in.
All right. Could be Shadow Spear, but there's a good chance that that is not in the deck anymore. Could be, I don't know, any artifact really, but we'll see what he goes with. Ginger Brute, the Ginger Man.
Yeah, Ginger Brute's a nice little combo with this Nettle Cyst here. That is a lot of damage coming in.
All right, has a land to play, but it will enter tap, so we cannot make the Ginger Brute unblockable and then equip Nettle Cyst. But we can just smash. Smashing's pretty good. All right, we will make it unblockable. And the construct coming in with the Nettle Cyst. These are large monsters. How big? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. So if there's no blocks, this is a ton of damage. We'll see if Lorenz wants to deploy Archmage's Charm. But, I mean, Giver of Runes just looks so awkward here.
And we'll see where this block does go. It's going to have to go onto the construct or the Nettle Cyst.
Yeah, Ginger Brute is currently unblockable except by haste creatures. And then these 2 creatures, the Germ and the Construct, are the same size because they both have the same ability.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised to see that Hafner didn't come in with the Stoneforge Mystic as well, because that actually would have resulted in lethal damage. The Giver of Runes could have protected whatever was blocked, and so no life would have been gained.
Oh, wow. That would have been fun. You might have got blown out by Archmage's Charm if you do that, though. All right, Teferi Time Raveler is the cast.
What do we think about just spell piercing this Teferi just to constrict? Yeah.
What do you think about extending the hand? What do you think about giving up? I'm a big fan of giving up there. So Havner takes it down 2-1 with blue-white hammer. We've seen a lot of hammer today on the top tables. It seems like some of our better players in the room are playing the archetype, and for good reason. We see all sorts of players on the SCG Tour and the NRG series piloting the archetype and just doing really well with it, and it makes a lot of sense that that would be one of the top decks here today because it's just one of the best decks in Modern.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's both a incredibly proactive and fast deck that's capable of very quick kills, and as we just saw, it's capable of grinding through significant numbers of answers as well. So it's just hard to interact with a deck that can play so flexibly, especially when you have things like Sigarda's, Age, Stoneforge Mystic. You don't tend to see mono-white creature-based decks that are capable of playing on opponents' turns that well.
Yeah,